On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, we're back. A 1911 legend passes. Why I hate female UFC. And is that an apple up your butt, or are you just happy to see me? Okay, good morning, everybody. This is episode 350 of the John1911 Podcast. It has been a hot minute since I have done an episode, so first of all, no worries. Everything is fine. We are still here. As you probably can guess, yeah, it is dealing with range construction and some issues. So, I don't want to harp on it too much, and it's kind of a bummer, but I look at it like this is an investment in the future. It's affecting, my shooting schedule. It's affecting content for the, content for the website, which really bums me out. But, I try to stay positive and remind myself that, this is an investment in the future for John1911. So we are dealing with another round of construction here at the range, and we are having some difficulties in getting certain contractors out here. Surprisingly enough, one of those contractors is the Amish guys. So they've been very busy. I have to compete with, all the fancy stuff that the Amish people do. They build commercial stuff, they build residential stuff, they build houses out here. And out here being where the range is, I'm not in the city. So, it's kind of, that's been a thing, because with that particular project, they have to come and finish something so then the other contractors can come in behind them. So, we're getting there. It's slower than I anticipated, but I expected this to be an issue. I mean, I knew in December, January that we were going to be slow. Did I think I'd be still doing this in September? No, but I guess I'm not surprised. So, here we are. Got some alarm systems installed, had to deal with that. Getting people to get out here, to do that kind of work is it's difficult. It normally involves scheduling things. It gets canceled. People don't show. There's rescheduling. There's wringing of hands, and people are upset. And companies, big companies want to take your money, but they don't necessarily they're not used to having to send people out into the boonies, to do the things that we're trying to do. So, it's just kind of how it goes. And one of the things that kind of develops kind of weird, is for about 2 months I've been trying to get a dumpster dropped out here at the range. So, for all the years that we've been out here, I do a pretty good job of keeping the range pretty organized, but, there eventually you run into things where you just can't burn it all, or if the stuff is too big to throw away, and maybe you'll take it into the office in Cincinnati and throw in a dumpster, but a lot of it just gets to be too much, or we discover stuff when we were building, when we pulled stuff out of the ground, like a lot of barbed wire. Just things like that. So I was able to finally get a dumpster out here. And so I spent 9 days loading this dumpster by myself, because again, I have to do most of the work out here, most of this, this kind of stuff. And it was a large dumpster because it didn't really make any difference on price. That's probably a muscle car you may have heard. It didn't make much difference on price, but I'd rather have too much dumpster than not enough dumpster. And I don't know if I guess I'll throw a photograph up on the website. We almost filled this thing. And I had actually offered, I didn't anticipate we were going to have that much in it. So I'd offered it to the Amish if they had some stuff they wanted to get rid of, that they were certainly allowed to use the dumpster. But I mean, there was so much stuff to put in that dumpster. It was half of it I needed the tractor to put it in the dumpster. So, I mean, I could have certainly gotten it all in, by hand. But, I mean, it was just, you're driving around, you're looking at stuff, and you go, oh, that can go in the dumpster. You drive around, oh, that can go into the dumpster. And you're like, oh, that can go in the dumpster. Like, oh, look, here's some old scrap metal that we had planned on using for target stands when we first bought this property. And we've never used it in, 9 years, 8 years, how far we've been out here. So it's like, well, we'll put that in the dumpster. And that had been overgrown, so we had to cut to get into it. And it's just, just all this kind of stuff. So, and then all the construction materials and everything that was stuck in the barn. So, it's it's been a lot. So unfortunately, you know, we're behind on some of the content, and I apologize for that, as I've already said. But I promise you, we're going to have a more steady publishing schedule going forward. As far as new business, we've been doing something new because it's working, and I wanted to kind of just see, you know, if it would continue working. So we have been publishing video shorts, and I don't know what the standard is for a short. This is all because all these social media sites are trying to compete with TikTok, right? So these vertical format, short form videos, and you know, we've been messing with more of them. And one thing I've noticed is some of these videos that we post as shorts, I mean, they just explode. No pun intended. They just explode in reach, and it brings in all these new subscribers to the YouTube channel, which is bringing in new eyeballs, which is bringing in more people to the website, which is ultimately where we want you to go, because we look at the YouTube channel as being, you know, being disposable, because they'll delete it at any time. So, but you know, if you want to pull 100,000 people to the website, it's best to have 100,000 people on your YouTube channel. So, as counterintuitive as it sounds, I'm interested in growing the YouTube channel, but everything I post up there, it doesn't matter if it disappears or they delete stuff, because it's always all on the website. Well, if we're going to make shorts and they're informative or interesting, we're putting them on the website. So those of you that go to the website, give me some honest feedback. I'm probably not going to stop making shorts and putting it on the website, but I'm open to possibly reformatting some stuff on the website. So if you have any critical eye as to how it renders or how it looks, there's a few things that I don't much care for the way it looks right now, but I'm not going to tell you, because I don't want to bias you into, you know, seeing what I see. I want you to see it organically. So whether you like it or don't like it, you know, let me know. And one of the problems we have with all this construction and everything that's been going on around here, because again, some of the problems are, you know, when there's workers here, we cannot have any gunfire, because one, it could be a safety issue, and two, you know, as I've said, you know, having guns and gunfire around here, when workers show up, they want to hang out and talk guns and not work. So, you know, it causes problems. But even though that we're kind of limited in how we're operating out here, and actually with the dumpster, we're trying to reopen the gun range. It's been particular to the rifle range, and clean some stuff up. We have been still getting new guns. So the list of guns we've never fired in the reference collection continues to grow, even as we're not producing as much content as I would like. So what are some of the things you haven't, maybe some of you see, we picked up an SKS, which was kind of weird for us. What do you call it? Krag Jorgensen rifle. We've done videos. Just showing it. We haven't shot it. We don't even have ammo for it. I did look. We do not have any 30-40 ammo. We've got some very old single shot target pistols, 22, that we've picked up, or at least one. We've never even fired that Norinco Army pistol, the 77B. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them. So I am hoping, well, more than hoping, that within the next, I don't know, however time, that you're going to see more shooting videos coming from us, and, you know, more range work and that kind of thing. Because, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, and I'm not happy about it. But even my personal shooting schedule has degraded so much that this is probably the slowest that I've fired, the least amount of rounds this year than I have fired haven't fired in 20. God, it's gonna be more than that. I mean, it's 35 years. So, you know, that shit's got to change. But we're working on it. We're getting there. In industry news, most of you have heard, we posted about it on the website. It went out in the newsletter this morning, Saturday morning. My old friend Ed Brown passed away, and I've known Ed for a long time. 20 years, roughly. Yeah, probably 20 years. And I like Ed. I've always liked Ed. he is a particular type of person. I'll say this about Ed Brown is he. I don't want to specifically get into what some people on social media were saying about Ed in the past, because I don't want to give light to those people. But a lot of those people are basically just social media people looking for clout. Ed Brown generally was misunderstood. Ed was a very private person. I would even go as far as to say shy. Ed was a meticulous person. Exactly the kind of guy you want building your gun or designing parts or running CNC, equipment, or running, old machine equipment, tool and die maker. Ed was the perfect personality that you want building guns. But Ed came from a time when he was not big on self-aggrandizement, which, in today's social media world is just, that doesn't make any sense. That's like not breathing oxygen to people on the internet. So Ed was not a big self-promoter. So Ed is not the kind of guy that would ever produce content about himself. Ed is the kind of guy who would leave it all in the gun. He would leave it all in the work. He would leave it all in the part. He would leave it all in the business. Ed expressed his opinions and his character and his marketing in his individual work. So if you wanted to know Ed was to know his work. To understand Ed was to understand his work. Not, hey, let's turn on a camera and have a dog and pony show for the internet. That wasn't Ed's personality. Now, Ed, in a personal setting, if he was comfortable with you and he knew you and he's more importantly familiar with you, he was he's charming and warm. And I know a lot of people just wouldn't believe that, but he really was. He was a good guy. And prayers to the Brown family, and I wish great success to Ed Brown Products. And if you get a chance, take a look at some of Ed's guns. A lot of the things in the 1911 world that you take for granted as standard on 1911s from all makers originated with Ed Brown. So I guess also in industry news, this came out, and I'm not that I would have any insight into guns.com. I don't know anything about them, and they certainly don't know anything about us, I don't think. But, they have a big YouTube presence. I didn't know that. I don't consume their content. And they sell guns online. And they had 200,000 or 300,000 subscribers. Well, I guess there's been a lot of drama between guns.com and YouTube lately. And so guns.com as an organization released their last video and have announced that they are no longer going to put any content out on YouTube. And so, they're talking about doing Rumble and I think X and, I don't know where. And, if you have to read between the lines when you're kind of looking at what they've accomplished and why they did what they did. It's a position of principle that guns.com is engaged in. And I wholeheartedly agree with it. But you have to understand, they have such a large library and such a large presence on YouTube that it is a way for new people or maybe old people to be reminded that they exist. And so those people can find the existing catalog and then maybe go to the guns.com website. So apparently guns.com has been getting in such an argument with YouTube over content and channel strikes and having stuff deleted that guns.com was on the bubble of having their entire channel deleted. And considering how large that channel is, and they don't really have an existing outlet, I don't believe, hosting all that content, they decided it was better to stop publishing there and let it stand on its own for a while and let it slowly die and still drag people into the website. So if you think about it, they actually have the exact same policy that we have. It's just they're coming from a position of success on YouTube and letting it die down, while we're trying to build up YouTube to reach people to get them onto the website. But we're just not paranoid about, about anything on YouTube as far as, them deleting content. Because if stuff, again, because we have the website, and from day one, we decided to put as much effort into the website as we did anything, that they could never take the website away from us. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, commenting, or a part of the website and leaving comments there, or signed up for a mailing list and maybe on our Facebook page, what are you doing? And why am I mentioning this? While guns.com has been having all kinds of problems with YouTube behind the scenes, I will tell you, I don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is. I have a theory. I can't prove it. We have been, this year, starting at about, I'd say March, started having all kinds of problems with Facebook. And it's to the point where, it is not inconceivable that Facebook could try to delete our Facebook page. And we have over 200,000 subscribers. Our Facebook page used to be a very heavy asset for us. And even before, when Facebook kind of changed, and it's kind of come back, I will say somewhat, but we were painfully aware how vulnerable we were as a business to Facebook, because it was like, God, if something happens to this Facebook page, they just delete us or lock us out or whatever happens on Facebook. People would never find us. So that's when we had decided over a decade ago to create John1911 website and focus on building our own, build on land that you own, not rent. So, we can have our own house. So, I've been kind of fighting with some of the stuff with Facebook, and actually the Facebook issue is what really has brought to the forefront the issue with the shorts. Because when we do the shorts, because people say YouTube shorts or TikTok videos, these short vertical videos, I would post a photograph of a gun on Facebook, and they would give us a strike or whatever they do to hurt us, and I would appeal it. I was winning them, and now they're not even responding to them, and they just, the hits are building. I take that same gun that they deleted and say, you can't publish weapons or whatever on, on your Facebook page. Never mind, everyone else can post guns. Gun stores can post shit for sale. I can take that same gun, do a YouTube or a short video, publish that short video to Facebook, and it gets thousands and thousands of views, hundreds of likes, and many dozens of shares. And it's like, this is schizophrenic. And Facebook is rewarding video, and they don't care what it is, but they are throttling the hell out of photographs. It had gotten to the point, the photograph situation had gotten so bad, what I would do is, if we would have a story featuring a gun, I wouldn't even if the story was, we're repairing a gun, there's a broken gun, I would take a screenshot of the website. So it would have a thumbnail, it would have text over it, and it would have a menu above and stuff around it. So it was obvious it was a story lifted off a website, not a gun for sale. And they started kicking me on that. So it's like, well, we got to back off on publishing photographs on our Facebook page. They're going to delete that page. And I don't want that page to get deleted, because it's the number one way that we get to reach people that are not on our email list and not going to the website, to remind them, you need to go to our website. You need to join our email list. Emails only go out Tuesdays and Saturdays. We don't sell or share the list. It's not only is it an in-house list, I'm the only person who has access to the list. It is secured and whatever, and it's not like it just can get passed around among staff members over here. It shit's locked up. So I promise you, you unsubscribe, you out. It's not a big deal. So, so guns.com, it'll be interesting to see what they're doing. Everyone tells us to go to Rumble, and I'm noticing more and more people are doing the Rumble thing. My position on Rumble has been pretty consistent. Rumble, float plane, full 30, name all these different things. I go looking, I haven't looked in a couple months, but I went and looked at, Ian McCollum, and he's got his Forgotten Weapons stuff. And he's got 2 million subscribers. And you go to his Rumble account and you look him up, and he's got, I don't know, he might even have 12,000 subscribers, or whatever it was. Percentage-wise of the people that are at YouTube is very small. Then you look at his views, and his views would be in the hundreds. And it's just holy shit. What's, the problem I have with Rumble, and actually I've heard this, the problem I have with Rumble is the same problem I have with YouTube, is we don't own it. So why would I jump out of the frying pan into the fire to go to Rumble when it's the same problem? And one of the problems that Rumble seems to have, I don't know this for sure, but Rumble, people smarter than me say Rumble rewards political content and political stuff. And we certainly do enough of that, especially on the, I like to keep it on the podcast. And they kind of downgrade especially gun content. Not that they're anti-gun, but they know they get a lot of views from people like Louder with Crowder. Hell, I think he owns that thing or part of it. They get a lot of views from people that are I'm mad about the red guys, or I'm mad about the blue guys, or I'm mad about this. And so their algorithm is obviously kind of, directed towards, leaning towards content that is, kind of aggravating to people. And, we have to be very careful here at John1911. We are we're a gun range, we're a lifestyle brand. I mean, we have this facility, but we're not our focus is firearms and shooting and training and performance-based shooting. We're not even gear reviewers. And so, even you'll notice around our content, we have been very quiet on the political stuff since before the conventions. And the reason is I always knew that a lot of the political commentary that's going to happen since June until after, let's say, Labor Day, it doesn't really matter. Fox News or CNN, they got to cover the story of the day, and everything that happens today is the most important thing that's going on in politics until 6 hours later, till this is the most important thing. And most of it doesn't matter. The policies don't matter. The positions don't matter. The headlines don't matter. The polls don't matter, because all that shit changes in the fall. And so you'll start seeing more stuff, especially from chief political correspondent Danny, doing more podcast stuff. And we'll do political content that is, within the right framework of, say, the podcast. But we're not going to start producing a bunch of video political content just so Rumble would pay attention to us. That just kill me. I would never the political content's kind of like sugary desserts. A nice good dessert at the end of the meal is, fulfilling and can be enjoyable and maybe even informative. But if that's all you do all day, every day, it just rots your brain. And we're just not interested in that. It's about 10% of our content. So max. And so, yeah, still not going to go to Rumble. And then, on top of that, Rumble would be another social media website that I have to get into the comment sections, and I have to curate the comments unless I just let it ride. But then you get people in there doing crazy shit, saying stuff under our banner that I just don't want to be a part of. And if you think about what I just said, that kind of justifies some of the things that YouTube does to gun channels. because I'm a businessman and I understand that. Do I like it that, that a lot of advertisers on YouTube maybe don't want to have John1911 firearms and our positions running commercials on their Toyota ads? I like Toyota. I drive a Toyota. But they may not necessarily want to hear from guys like us because, their position would probably be their Japanese company and Democrats and Republicans buy trucks. And so why would they want to, alienate half the population? Well, the same thing is I put stuff up on Rumble and then I don't know on the underneath, in the comments section, there's people, threatening a current president, threatening a former president, threatening each other's families, all this crazy, crazy shit. And it's like, dude, our motto is shooting guns and having fun. We're obviously Republicans. We're obviously conservatives. We're more conservatives than we are Republicans. We're concerned about the Constitution and all the Bill of Rights and, America first. But even now, politically speaking, you say America first, half the country has been taught to believe that the phrase America first is now associating you with Charles Lindbergh kind of being a borderline pro-Nazi, trying to keep America out of World War II and his America First movement. And it's like, I like Charles Lindbergh. We're certainly not pro-Nazi. And I don't want to be associated with any of this shit. Like, I don't want people to put words in our mouths. So, yeah, Rumble's still not in the cards for us. If YouTube slams the door and deletes everything, and I can go over there and I can see more and more people on Rumble, the best thing that will happen to Rumble for gun people is if YouTube finally just gets rid of everybody. But they know if they do that, it could create a critical mass for all this gun content over at Rumble. Because the secret is, like all those people that watch Ian McCollum over at Rumble, all 1,200 of them or whatever it is, or hundreds of views, every single one of them, statistically speaking, still consumes content on YouTube. So it doesn't really work. I mean, so I'm open to it. It's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze yet. And, it's becoming less worth the squeeze on YouTube and definitely less worth the squeeze on Facebook. So once the big changes come, our website will be set, but sorry folks, we're still not going to do Rumble. Interesting side note from the industry, China is, we're kind of slowly getting into some trade wars with China. It started under Trump. He was putting tariffs on things and everyone was like, oh, you can't do that. And Joe Biden kept all the same tariffs. There's a Harley driving by. I don't know if you can hear it. Joe Biden kept all the same tariffs in place, last I checked, on China. So I don't know. So maybe it's a bipartisan thing. The idea of trying to reshore stuff, make stuff in the U.S. Well, one of the things that China supplies a fair amount of the world with, not all of it, but a fair amount of it, is rare earth minerals. And I guess China has now put restrictions on antimony antimony to the U.S., which will definitely affect the market of antimony, which will affect a lot of companies in the U.S., especially weapons manufacturers, and I think maybe some metallurgical companies, like maybe that make like ball bearings and stuff. But also, if you are into casting your own bullets, I don't know how that's going to affect you. It probably not terribly, but you may start to see stuff go up, and it's one of the things slowly happening with China. I just thought it was worth mentioning, for the podcast. And I guess we got to get into it. There's been a second, I guess you could say assassination attempt against Trump. I mean, the dude had a gun, and he was within range of Trump. So, yeah, I mean, I think this has been explained a lot since the first day or two, but a lot of people, they have this perception of the Secret Service because it's from Hollywood or they see the president. And Donald Trump just simply does not have the kind of footprint that the current president has. People just don't realize, and I think we may have talked about it in the past, people don't realize how large of a footprint the Secret Service gives the president and the vice president, and the president in particular. Just like there's thousands of people involved in this. Just the logistics and, you know, the amount of aircraft, because it's not just Air Force One, there's support. It's not just Air Force One, there's support aircraft. There's the backup Air Force One. Then there's the secret backup Air Force One that people don't know about. Like the president, the president has a protective detail, and, you know, there's advanced teams, and they look at things, and there's different advanced teams going around because, you know, they just can't show up at the last minute. The advanced teams are going out weeks ahead of time where they expect the president to go on their published schedule, which also makes it dangerous for the president because, you know, you publish a schedule, and so you could kind of set up and be ready. So they do advanced stuff. And then even when the Secret Service does advanced things, they make these weird changes. You can never tell, like where they're going to be, what they're going to do, maybe what airport they're going to fly in or what route they're going to take, or all these different crazy things that, you know, they get involved in. So, but also on top of that, people don't understand, you know, the sitting president of the United States not only has a protective detail that rolls heavy, the sitting president of the United States has a counter assault force that has enough firepower that it could handle it was designed for this. It could handle being attacked by Soviet Air Force or Soviet paratroopers that may try to do a decapitation or whatever strike on the National Command Authority, so that this counter assault force is capable of engaging a military force while the president's personal protective detail is able to disengage and, you know, and flee to safety. Like, this is a huge footprint. The only way Donald Trump can get the kind of protective detail that the president has is to become president. I don't even think the Secret Service has the manpower to provide to the president. I mean, to the former president. They just don't. They don't have. Well, one, they couldn't, because they're not going to have all the stuff for like the sitting president, but even the manpower of the detail, like they're going to have to start taking people off of other details. Like, you know, you see stories in the news, like Barron Trump is running around NYU Stern going to school, and you see him, he's got a couple of Secret Service agents with him. I've seen Don Trump Jr. at the NRA show, and he had 2 agents with him that I was able to pick up. He had one agent close, and then there was a second agent that was, you know, off to the distance that really was functioning as a rear cover to the agent with, you know, and again, there could have been more, but, you know, these people, I mean, they're not getting tons and tons and tons of protection. You know, people talk, where are the drones at, or where's this at? Like Barack Obama is the president that's responsible for the death of Osama bin Laden. Do you think when Barack Obama goes to the seafood restaurant in Nantucket that there's a Predator drone flying around the restaurant? Maybe there is. I don't know. I don't want to know. I just know I don't want anybody touching Barack Obama. I don't want anybody touching Joe Biden. I definitely don't want anybody touching Donald Trump. I mean, that's for the record. I don't want anybody touching Bill Clinton. I don't want anybody touching George W. either. So it's frustrating. They're obviously going to have to make some significant changes. Donald Trump is, without a doubt, the most vulnerable. I mean, I don't know. Ford had a fair amount of attempts on his life. Like, if you look at the history, like really from when JFK got shot to, I don't know if anything happened to Lyndon Johnson. So I think something happened. Something I think may have happened during the Nixon administration, but I don't think it directly involved Nixon. There were at least 2 attempts. There were 2 attempts on Ford. One of them actually, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it's been so long. I think one of them involved, maybe it's both of them. One of them involved what's that boy's name? Charles Manson's sex slave girls. You know, one of those girls, I think, one of those girls either brought a gun and got wrestled away from Ford or actually was able to take a shot. I know that somebody took a shot at Ford and missed him by inches, and that's considered the closest call, really since Donald Trump. Sirhan killed RFK in that hotel, and they kind of don't want to talk about it. But Sirhan, why he killed RFK was because America gave fighter airplanes to Israel. And Sirhan, I think he was Turkish. I think pretty sure he was Turkish. He didn't like the fact that, America was supporting Israel, so he killed RFK. So, I mean, is that the first case of Islamic terrorism in the modern age of the United States? It certainly sounds like it. What else was there that happened? There's just, Reagan got shot. There was a lot of stuff going on. And I think we've kind of gone through since Reagan. Well, no, there was and we talked about this one in the past, and I finally started talking about it again. Somebody threw a hand grenade at George W. Bush, and I misremembered it. I thought it was in Russia. Apparently it happened in the state of Georgia, not the state of the United States, the country south of Russia. And I think the grenade didn't detonate, but they found it later. But someone threw a grenade at Bush. But we've gone through a period, maybe artificially, where American presidents have been relatively safe, and we're probably going into a period where politically in this country, look, I guess I hate to say this, look, I want Donald Trump to win. Do I think Donald Trump's going to win the election? I'll tell you right now, if, everybody's playing with their pet polls, all right? It's like, oh, this poll, Trafalgar says this, or this person says this, or Nate Silver says this, or Real Clear Politics says this, and everybody cherry picks which one, has their candidate up ahead. I guess you can't say dude anymore. Has their candidate up ahead. In my heart of hearts, and I think we all can agree on this, that unless Donald Trump can win by a large enough margin that you can't affect the outcome through small levels of surreptitious ballot handling. If Donald Trump is up by 2 points in some of these battleground states, like in Pennsylvania, I don't think he's going to win, because it's too easy. It's too easy. So, but okay. So let's say it's an election, and let's say Trump doesn't win and he loses by a hair, and it comes down to some nonsense that may have happened in Georgia, or nonsense that may have happened in Pennsylvania, or nonsense that may have happened in Arizona, or nonsense in Nevada. And let's say the nonsense it's even debatable. Some people, they want to believe something happened. Some people don't want to believe something happened. Doesn't matter. The result is going to be, unless it's a blowout, the side that loses is going to be very pissed off. And, the Democrats feel that Donald Trump, they do this for political reasons, but, they tell everybody that Donald Trump is Satan, or Donald Trump is Hitler, or Donald Trump is the end of the dictator, or this, or end of the republic, and blah, 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 blah. So it's like these crazy people get attracted to shiny things, and they're like, I can be famous, or I can do good in the world, and the world is telling me that I have to stop this man. And so the crazy shit happens. Or the other side of it, Donald Trump supporters, and they don't believe if some weird stuff happens, like, oh, they're counting the polls in whatever state, and then at midnight they shut down, and one guy's ahead and one girl isn't, and then 7 o'clock in the morning they come back into work, and magnificently there's 400,000 more ballots. There's going to be enough, whether you logically think that's a problem or not, and I'm not taking out a position on that right now. If that happens, there's going to be enough crazies on the right that are going to be attracted to that shiny object problem that they potentially could do crazy shit too. And yeah, hey, look, and I'll even throw you a bone. You know, you could be like, oh, maybe the FBI will encourage it. I mean, why not? I mean, I don't see how going forward after November that we're not going to be guaranteed for the next, I don't know, 6, 8, 12 years of a lot of political violence in this country. The political violence when Donald Trump was elected started on the day of his inauguration. The federal government, clearly and obviously in cahoots with the Hillary Clinton campaign, used the national security establishment to try to say that Donald Trump was a Russian agent and destroy his presidency or overturn the election or do whatever they want to do. That's crazy that happened. And that we all know that happened. That is irrefutable at this point. You know, whether you think certain things happened on January 6th, the Russian collusion thing is irrefutable at this point, but it's memory hold. There is no way we're not going to end up with a bunch of disruptions and problems in various parts of the country, you know, after the election. I hope that maybe every American votes for who they want to vote for, and they all 100% vote for what everybody, and everybody comes together, kumbaya. Part of the reason why we're going through all of these construction changes and things here at John 1911 is we're evacuating the major urban government county city in southwestern Ohio for this very reason. Because we see the stuff changing, we see the politics changing, we see how law enforcement is changing, we see how the justice system is changing, and the people that run these systems are changing, and it's going to get worse. And I'm spending a lot of money and a lot of treasure on not being vulnerable to that. And it is directly related to the politics of the age. And so, you know, if you think that I'm not staking out strong enough a position on whatever side of this that you're on politically, whether you're for Trump or against Trump, or for Kamala or against Kamala, whether you're a never Trumper or whether you're an always Trumper, you know, however you want to slice and dice, conservative, Republican, you know, Dick Cheney this, Dick Cheney that, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I mean, this is no joke. I mean, all of this, the podcast being slow is because we're preparing for high levels of disruption in urban areas. And I went through a lot of that stuff when I was younger. I worked through a lot of that stuff. I've been in riots. You know, I'm 53 years old. I'm not living the second half of my life like that shit. So it's like, you know, we're evacuating these urban areas, and, you know, I don't have a lot of faith in the coming year that things are going to be more stable, that the shootings are going to be less, the assassinations are going to be less, the runs on ammo are going to be less, the need for ammo is going to be less, the need for medical supplies is going to be less, the need for lawyers is going to be less, the need for politicians that have to come out in cameras to defend individual Americans who were obviously engaged in self-defense from being lynched, you know, by the media. Like, this is just going to continue. And so I would warn a lot of you right now, vote. I don't care if you vote Democrat. You can vote for whoever you want to in America. I'm totally fine with that. You can be a communist and you want to vote for communism, that's fine. I don't want to be a communist, but, you know, okay, whatevs. That's how this works. But you better be ready. You better start making preparations and thinking about what America's going to look like. And I'm not talking about like gloom and doom, whatever, but just like look at your environment, okay? Look at your city, look at your town, who's the mayor, who's the police chief, who's on city council, who's the county city prosecutor or the county prosecutor, who are your county commissioners, who are your county judges, who are your, political figures that have the most sway, and what agendas do they push for? Because if you live in a place where they would reward, here's a blast from the past, where say a Mike Nifong was rewarded for going out and basically slandering a bunch of kids from Duke University because of politics, and it turns out that it was all a lie, and these kids had their lives ruined and spent probably millions of dollars on attorneys, and prosecutor Mike Nifong went to jail over it. If you live in a place where somebody would risk destroying you for their political gain, if you can't afford to leave, you better start making preparations to be able to survive in that kind of environment. So that's my political talk for 2024. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about some fun stuff. I've like many of you, I've followed the stories of the exploding pagers and the exploding walkie-talkies. I haven't checked the news yet this morning. For all I know, there was exploding Frigidairs. That is just awesome. I mean, let's talk about some, I don't know, like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. crazy. Like, that sounds like something from a movie. And like, if we were writing a movie, it's like, hey, we're John 1911, we're going to do, John 1911, we're going to try to be like Garand Thumb, and we're going to make these highly produced, cool video sequences telling stories, and doing whatever. It's like, hey, let's put exploding pagers in there to tell the story on, for the action. People be like, dude, that is so lame. That's so unbelievable. What's next? Dogs with lightsabers come out of their butts. It's like, just keep it real. Well, apparently blowing up people's pagers is now keeping it real. And we all know, if you don't know, Israel famously, God, I don't know how long ago it was. I can't remember who the terrorist was. They had placed an explosive into, I believe it was a cell phone, and the cell phones were bigger back then. But they had successfully placed an explosive in this phone, and they knew that this terrorist eventually would have this phone, was known to maybe use this phone, and so they were able to monitor it. So they basically did a situation where they were able to call the phone or monitor the activity of the phone, and they're like, "Ooh, you put Muhammad on the phone?" And Muhammad, yes, this is Muhammad, and they literally, because he's talking in the phone, they blew up the phone in his hand up against his head. So the whole pager thing is not something that's, entirely, out of the realm of history for the Israelis. The pager thing is interesting to me because you have to ask yourself, how did they do this? And a lot of people, more probably is going to come out. I'm behind the curve because we haven't been doing podcasts. But, did they insert explosives in Taiwan? Did they insert explosives in Hungary? Or I think where these pagers came from? Did they make an entire batch of replacement pagers with explosives in them, and then did some super secret, Man from U.N.C.L.E. What's the movie with Tom Cruise, whatever, the Mission Impossible, where they went to some loading dock and warehouse and they were able to bring in a crate and with the stuff with the explosives in it, and then take the crate out with the original pagers, and they were even able to duplicate all the IMEI or whatever, all the chips. Like they were able to clone the entire thing and built these things. Did they insert some kind of a plastic explosive inside the pager, or did they manufacture, say, like a battery where, like, inside the battery half was explosive and half was battery, so they could just replace the battery pack, and even if you opened it up, you'd be like, oh, there's the battery pack, and it's sealed. Maybe it's that way. But maybe the explosives, maybe it was, the battery wears down faster on this because the battery's half the size. Maybe it was a situation where, because we know Israel's always trying to surveil these people. I mean, for all we know, maybe it was broadcasting GPS data. Maybe it was even able to pick up microphones and conversations and able to transmit it back. And, you could even hide the transmissions from the device and hide it as the device just paging a cell phone tower. Maybe they spoofed a cell phone tower in Israel on the edge of Lebanon. So these people think that their devices are connecting to a cell phone tower in Beirut, and really it's connecting to a cell phone tower in the Golan Heights. And maybe this was a surveillance operation, but Israel decided when they initiated this that once it was blown or discovered, no pun intended, that they were just going to go ahead and blow everything up. It's like, hey, if we're going to be able to insert tracking or bugging into these devices, why not just put explosives in them just to give us, once it comes out and they're compromised, blow them all up? Israel does that kind of stuff. Maybe the initial point of these exploding pagers and walkie-talkies wasn't to blow up and kill people. Maybe it was to surveil people, and then the explosion was just a cherry on top or to clean up the mess. Israel did that with a satellite remote-controlled gun. It was a machine gun set up in the back of a vehicle, and they killed a guy, a rocket scientist in Iran, driving down a road with a security detail. And for some reason, they even were able to arrange that maybe the security detail was, maybe the vehicle broke down, or I can't remember the details of it, but this gun was so accurate, and they were able to control it from a satellite or control it remotely, even factoring in the delay of the signal, that they were able to target the man in the vehicle and not his wife. So they didn't just spray this whole vehicle. They literally were able to target, I think it was an FN weapons system that FN had designed, and they smuggled it into Iran piece by piece, or maybe they snuck it across the border on a camel. I don't know. But it was very interesting. And then when that whole thing was done, the truck exploded, and they were trying to hide, electronics or communications. Maybe it was a cleanup. For all we know, we think that this was a mass decapitation strike, and really it was just a cleanup on a surveillance operation. I don't know. I think it's interesting. And I just want to add this. This is a funny story. We'll have a link on the website. It's coming out of China, and this is just a reflection of culture. And, everyone's, afraid of the Chinese, and they're, a near peer, geo-strategic competitor, blah, 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 blah. So China is known for having pandas, right? That's kind of like the national bear, the national animal in China. And I guess pandas eat, is it bamboo? And they're kind of endangered because they have this very specific ecosystem, and they don't breed, but like every so often. And so, it was kind of an issue. Well, people in China go to these zoos and they want to see the pandas. And for some reason, I don't know what the deal was. Maybe the pandas were on strike. Maybe they never had pandas. Maybe the pandas got sick. Maybe they loaned out the pandas to the Cincinnati Zoo, which, they've been known to do. But they still wanted to have the panda draw at their zoo. So what these people did, this is in there's video, it's unbelievable. They took dogs, Shih Tzus maybe, I don't know, or the big Shits, it's like a fluffy dog, and they spray painted these dogs black and white, put them in the panda exhibit, and then let the public, ooh, look at the panda, until people start taking video, like maybe they're baby pandas, or they're adolescent pandas, and they got, it's obvious, you look at this, like these are dogs. And it's so hilarious. It's like an Animal House movie, but it's like somebody in authority and power in China thought this was a good idea. And it's so hilarious. When I see stuff like this, it kind of makes me feel a little good. We have to be vigilant when dealing with the Chinese. We have to be vigilant with dealing with the MSS. We have to be vigilant when dealing with Chinese military power, and making sure we just don't assume that we can beat them and we're better, and all this stuff, and you end up getting smoked. However, I will admit, in the backs of my mind, I see stories like, let's spray paint the dogs that look like pandas. The very deepest recesses of my mind, I say, structurally, these people are retarded, and they're not going to be that hard to beat. This is crazy. This is crazy. Look at the pictures. Let me know what you think. Big bad China. They're spray painting dogs. Well, going for almost an hour, so I'm going to go and speed it up a little bit and try to get through some of this, because I don't want to, y'all haven't had a podcast in a hot minute. I don't want to pop your ears with too much information coming out of your speakers. So, a couple things. Stuff in Russia is getting a little tense for the Russians. They're becoming more and more unhappy, or less and less happy. And, there's talk of saber rattling and nuclear weapons. There's a good chance within the next couple of months. I don't know if it'll be before or after the election, depending on what the Russians want to do to try to play the world stage on this. The Russians will likely detonate a nuclear weapon. And so that gets reported and everyone's like, oh my God. But what they don't tell you is the Russians for 5 or 6, at least 5 years, this goes back to the Trump administration, the Russians have been upgrading. There's a nuclear weapons testing facility up near the Arctic Circle, up in northern Russia, and they do testing there. We have the same type of facility. I think ours is in Nevada, and both countries, we have signed with other signatories as well. There's I have to think about Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, the NTBT. And so there's a treaty that we've signed that limits nuclear testing. And so we all agreed not to do any open air above ground testing because of all the fallout and the trash that it makes and the problems. And so you see countries, if they are going to do live nuclear testing, they do it underground. So then you'll see the explosion and you see the ground collapse because it vaporizes a hole and then it all collapses in on that hole. And so we have agreed not to do live testing because we have computer models and we try to simulate this stuff, how it's going to work and will it work and, how it degrades and if the weapons are still good. And we even do things where we randomly pull out weapons out of nuclear watch, pull them out of service, take them to, I don't know where the Navy, maybe the Navy does theirs too. No, the Navy might do tests out of their subs, but they take them to Vandenberg Air Force Base. They, and they do stuff where they test fire them, the missile to see if it launches, fires, separates, guides, impacts. And then they'll do, other testing, they'll check the quality of the weapon. It was, again, an unarmed missile, but we all do these kinds of tests to see if we're kind of keeping our stuff fresh, right? Well, the Russians started upgrading their nuclear testing facility about 6 years ago. So we started maybe 7 years ago. Trump was president. And so we started upgrading ours. Well, the Chinese saw us, upgrading it, and maybe China did it first, but basically we're in a position that if Russia decides to detonate a nuclear weapon at their testing facility to try to make everybody nervous about Ukraine, fairly quickly, the United States will conduct an underground test to do two things. One, real testing is always better than simulated testing. And two, this is a little known fact about the nuclear weapons that came out. It was kept quiet. I don't know when they discovered it, but it was the I guess it's the Ohio class nuclear submarines. We have the SSBNs, the ballistic nuclear submarines, the nuclear subs with the ballistic missiles that they hide underwater. If you ever seen the was it Crimson Tide, with Gene Hackman, that movie where they got the missiles, those kinds of weapons are typically designed, at least for the United States, to be second strike weapons. So what that means is the argument in the nuclear triad is that even if you successfully take out our nuclear weapons, or you even defeat us in battle, because you did some kind of crazy sneak attack, we have enough nuclear weapons underwater and where you can't find them that we can conduct a second strike and we will destroy you. So if America goes offline, I don't know the specifics of the protocols, but there's a positive control and the negative control. If America goes offline, the subs may have to do, if the subs can't contact certain members of the National Command Authority in certain ways that are, I don't know exactly how it all works. I know there's the take charge and move out aircraft and all that, and Looking Glass, and the E-4B Doomsday and all that, but they may launch. Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up is it was discovered after the fall of the Soviet Union at some point that a certain number of our Polaris, was it Polaris? Yeah, are we on Polaris 4 now? So this is like Polaris 2s maybe? A certain number of these missiles, a certain percentage of these missiles, more than you would have liked to have admitted, had a defect or something in them where they wouldn't have worked. And we weren't able to figure this out until, much later. And so it would have been, the threat would have been less on a second strike. Well, so it is, I promise you, there are people in the United States government and the Department of Defense and Department of Energy and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that if Russia does a live nuke test at their facility in northern Russia, that there will be some people in the U.S. government that are like, yes, we're going to do ours because we want to test some shit too. So be prepared for that. Understand that the preparations to do stuff at this facility in northern Russia started before the Ukraine war. And watching them upgrade the facility, we watch through satellites. They watch ours through satellites. But then there used to be the Open Skies program. I think Trump finally shut that down, where they would allow, we would allow their inspectors to come and look at some of our stuff, and they would allow our inspectors to come and look at some of their stuff, including flying aircraft over things. One of the things that the Open Skies would do is they'd want to look at these nuclear testing facilities. So this could be an issue. It could come up in presidential politics. It could come up early on in presidential politics of the next sitting president. It's not all going to be Ukraine related. The media will portray it as such, but just keep in mind there's bigger issues that you need to factor into the arguments that people are going to be making about this. So be ready. Since we live in Ohio, everybody's asking about Springfield, Ohio, and the people eating the cats and the dogs and the geese and the whatever. And, some people are claiming that it was debunked, and some people are saying that it's not debunked. My personal opinion, I don't have proof. I feel like the story is true. I feel like the story is real. Even when people that say that it's not real, they'll say, yeah, they're eating the geese. And I don't know. Like, I know if I shoot geese around here, I kill geese, that's a federal crime. Like the big one. I mean, like, there's a federally protected bird. Geese are nasty animals, and every time they take a crap somewhere, salmonella all in it. They are terrible animals, and they make everybody sick. Why would you eat a goose? Ugh, but whatever. You see stories, people calling about, animals missing or people carrying carcasses. There's even one guy who's talking about up there. He's like, I don't know about them eating or whatever, but, I keep finding carcasses of dead raccoons in trash bags. And another guy claims that they're cooking cats in his neighborhood and he can smell it. So again, I don't know if it's true. I feel like it is true. Not that my opinion matters, but also what's interesting is the Democrats are scared shitless of this story. When Trump said it, it was kind of genius because politically, you could tell how afraid the Democrats were of this story by how vociferously they started screaming about it. Because if Barack Obama had said it against a Republican, it would be a huge story. Because politically in America and culturally in America, the amount of people in this country that are like fur mommies, mostly women. I mean, like I'm a dog mom or cat mom or whatever, or I'm the, people, I mean, look, and it's not just even that. Like, let's talk about Ruby Ridge, okay? Ruby Ridge. You remember Ruby Ridge? How it really started off, how it went sideways quick was federal agents were sneaking around on that man's property. His 14-year-old son is taking his dog and he's walking around the property as boys will do with their dogs. You can't get any more American apple pie than that. Dog detects something in the woods, in the bushes. It's two hidden sniper observers or somebody from, I don't know if it was U.S. Marshal Service or the ATF. I think like it was the Marshal Service, but maybe it was ATF. and dog goes in after him because it's their property. Your dog is detecting somebody hiding, and all of a sudden they're screaming and yelling and gunfire, and these people shoot this boy's dog. And the dog, or the boy, I hate to admit this, I'm pro law enforcement. I don't know anybody in America that can really legitimately make an argument that if a boy's out with his dog and someone shoots his dog, 14-year-old boy, that he's going to have the judgment, wherewithal, or even need to. Why should he not shoot at the people that just killed his dog that he can easily perceive to be going to kill him next? Because he's 14 years old. Nobody in the universe of that entire story would even intimate that that was an unjustified shooting. So then dog attacks law enforcement shoots the dog. Boy shoots law enforcement, kills the guy. Other law enforcement shoots boy, kills the boy. Nobody in any of the argument of it would even go anywhere near and suggest that wasn't justified. That's what the whole thing sucks. Because in America, we take animals and pets very, very, very seriously. Maybe that's a commentary on our culture. Maybe that's our commentary on how little we think of human life. That is an argument for a different time. But this animal story, eating pets, eating these animals, is got traction. And even though everyone's trying to debunk it, and maybe some of it is debunked, not all of it is. And this will be probably the biggest thing that'll be remembered from this election season. Kind of like, when, Al Gore was talking, he's up the debate and he's doing lockbox, or the John Kerry when he puts on the camouflage and carries a shotgun and he goes duck hunting in front of the cameras to show he's a gun guy. And it's just like, I think people eating Fluffy and the AI pictures of Donald Trump with a cat and a duck, and he's got an AR or whatever kind of rifle the AI tries to draw, that's going to be the biggest takeaway of this election, no matter what happens. And I personally believe it's true. Also, Springfield is not the only town that's going through this. I think it's either Seymour or Columbus, Indiana, has had a bunch of people dropped on them. There's another small town in Indiana, I don't know if it's Napoleon or Washington, Indiana, had a bunch of people dropped on them, especially relative to the size of these towns. It's a huge percentage. And this is happening all over the country. And so the story isn't really about the dogs. The story is about the crime and the issues and the inflation and rents and like people getting killed on the roads by drunk drivers, by people who can't drive or aren't legal to drive. It's a bigger story than who's eating Fluffy. I think some of it's true. I think some of it is absolutely true. Can I prove it? No. Do I want to prove it? No. I don't care that much. It's all true. It's true enough. Okay, in the hunting section of the John 1911 podcast, here's a weird one that a lot of people wouldn't believe. Wild animals will kill you. Wild animals are dangerous. The Disneyification of animals, especially talking about, people, how they feel about their pets. There's a story, we'll have it up on the website, and there's a mother and a child, I would imagine a smallish child, walking on a boat dock, and an otter comes up out of the water or comes running down the dock, not clear, and attacks them, grabs the child, and pulls the child into the water to try to kill this child and drag the child away. Mom ends up jumping in or pulling the child out of the water when they come back up for air, and as she's pulling the child back, the otter is still attacking the child, biting the child, holding onto the child. I mean, people are not typically... If I would say, hey, look, there's a bunch of otters over there, you'd be like, oh, those are cute. And it's like, yeah, dude, you ever been attacked by an otter? Ever been attacked by a raccoon? A lot of these animals that are Disneyified, they kick your ass. You have to be able to stomp the shit out of an otter or shoot it if it comes after you. And it's just, we have to live in a real world a little bit with some of this stuff. Okay, we're going to do a straight run through the rest of it, so let's get into it. pop culture section of the podcast, a couple of things. Some of this is a reflection of what I like or what I think, so just bear with me. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of the female UFC fighter, Irene Aldana. She had a fight, and I don't know, I assume they called the fight. I didn't even read the story. I don't need to read the story. I've seen the photographs, and her face is split open like you just can't believe. She's got splits down her forehead. She's got a small split over her, probably her right eye. And the split down her forehead goes all the way down into the corner of her eye by her nose. Like, it's horrendous. And she fought a woman. And it just kind of reaffirms a couple things, just how I feel. I have a 3rd degree black belt. I used to teach martial arts. I'm very pro martial arts. I love the UFC. I love the UFC. Dude, I was watching the UFC. I was training jiu-jitsu in the 90s, okay? Gracie jiu-jitsu in the 90s, like mid-90s, 96, maybe even 95. So, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that I'm Joe Rogan or anything, but I mean, it's not like I'm not a new fan or, you know, fair weather friend here. I hate women's combat sports. I'm not saying women can't do it. Not saying that people shouldn't watch it. Not saying any of it. I hate it. I hate women's boxing. I hate women's kickboxing. I hate women's UFC. I hate all of it. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to sit through it. I don't want to see it because I don't like watching women get the fuck beat out of them. I don't like watching women get the fuck beat out of them by trans men. I don't like watching women get the fuck beat out of them by regular men. I don't like watching women get the fuck beat out of them by other women. I mean, like, if I see 2 women beating the fuck out of each other, I'm bringing that shit up. Like, I hate it. And I'm not saying can't do it. I'm not saying that the girl can't do it. I'm not saying I don't wish her the best. Not saying, you know, hope she got all the money. You know, if I have to root for one and one of mine's in there, I guess I'll root for that one, but I am not watching it. And if you want to see why I don't want to watch this, take a look at these pictures of Irene and tell me that that's worth watching to you. I mean, personally, I'm not saying morally or legally. I'm not a part of it. And, you know, I'm gonna say this because it's true, and a lot of people don't want to hear it. You know, women are different than men. You're like, yeah, no shit. It's like, well, in today's age, you got to actually point it out. But there's biological differences between men and women, and a lot of you guys, you experience it or you see the remnants of it or hear the remnants of it all the time, the details of it, but you don't think about it. Like, most people don't understand that women's skin is thinner than men's skin by about like 25%. Men are bigger, men are stronger, they have more testosterone, we have bigger muscles, we have more muscle, we have thicker skin. Literally, we have thicker skin. Like, if you were to go out and say to somebody, this is a good way to set up people that don't live in a real world, be like, yeah, women just don't have as thick skin as men. And people are like, you sexist, whatever. It's like, yeah, really? Yeah, it's actually true. And it even shows itself in a couple ways. One, because men have more testosterone, we tend to run hotter. Our core body temperature, generally speaking, tends to be a little bit warmer than women. And also because women have thinner skin, they get colder easier. And you see this all the time. I cold. You know, women get colder faster than men. It's because there's biological differences. And coming back to this UFC thing, you get a bunch of these women that know how to fight, and they're wearing these gloves, and they're going many rounds, beating the piss out of each other. Don't be surprised. One of these women, she looks like, her face looks like a scene out of a Brad Pitt movie where they're cutting up the Nazis. I mean, it's horrendous, this photograph. Wish them all the best. I fucking hate it. I don't talk much about football because I'm not a big football fan, so I'm not really qualified. I know a lot more about UFC. I've never played football. Like, I definitely have fought, and, you know, fought on the street and fought in dojo. But, you know, I don't know a whole lot about football. I really don't. But, you know, I did see that I can't say his name, that quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. had another concussion again where he's like reaching and got the claw hands and all that. And it's just, I understand that there's a lot of money here, and he's like maybe a number one round draft pick, and quarterbacks are a big deal. Trust me, I live in Cincinnati. I understand the obsession with quarterbacks because Cincinnati was obsessed with quarterbacks before they finally got a good one. But this kid can't. In my opinion, I'm sorry. I know what they're going to try to do, but there has to be somebody inside the NFL, Roger Goodell's office, that has to be somehow talking to that football team and going, look, this kid can't play football anymore. Because if he ends up brain dead or gorked out of his mind, or if he ends up like old Cassius, or I guess it's Muhammad Ali, and he's under 30, it's going to cost more money to the NFL than what this kid's apparently this kid has a huge contract, like $125 million. And I don't know how it all works as far as if he retires, if he quits, if he's medically retired, if they fire him, or how it all works. But there has to be some conversation inside the NFL where they got to be like, dude, you have got to cut this kid loose because you're going to cost all of us billions and billions of dollars if this kid ends up getting seriously hurt, and they're going to change this game forever. They're going to have some standards, because even if I understand there's probably, I don't even know what team this kid plays for. And like, if you're in a city and you're a fan of that team, okay, you know what? I'll make it Cincinnati Bengals because I know the Bengals a little bit. We've got that quarterback that everyone loves, Carson Palmer. Is that right? Carson? Is that his name? Carson? No. Is that Carson? Is that his name? Yeah. I think it's his name. I remember Ken Anderson, so give me a break. And that if we were talking about the Bengals quarterback and he's on the ground basically seizing with claw hands, and it's like, how selfish do you have to be like, well, couldn't put him in a concussion protocol and do this and do that. Like, the hits this kid is getting now, they're not even big hits. This kid's instantly getting a concussion. And he's getting them so young, and he's getting them so quickly, and they're cumulative. This is a real. Nobody's talking about it because they don't want to pressure the NFL. Because they know what people are probably going to want to have happen, but they're not putting that kid's best interest at heart. And I would even say privately, the NFL should probably talk to that kid's family. Because I don't know the situation with the money. And that kid's family is probably like, this kid was going to change our lives. This kid, we've all the promise of like Michael Jordan of billions of dollars, all this. And now, like, we're all just as broke as we were. Well, the kid got a contract. Maybe they can backdoor some way to figure out a way to pay the family off so the kid can just leave with dignity, and they can all just kind of move on and not force a situation where it creates a rule change that the NFL isn't going to like, or it creates a liability that could cost the NFL billions of dollars. So I'm sorry, but I'm not the person that even likes football or knows anything about football. But if it were me, it's kind of like a Judge Landis moment with baseball and gambling. And what happened with the Black Sox, and even all the way up to Pete Rose. And I live in Cincinnati, and I think Pete Rose earned his lifetime ban. Like Roger Goodell has to be the leader here of the NFL, and he's got to stop this, because this could destroy the NFL. Okay, police blotter time. Let's get her done. Let's see here. First story is old news, and we'll put the full thing up in the obviously on the website. But there was some incidents of some people going around shooting substations, power substations, and people were talking about terrorism or Islamic terrorism, or maybe Russians, and there's certainly Russian agents going around Western countries now, since especially the past like 8-10 months, doing things to damage the West's ability to support the war in Ukraine. They keep it quiet, but that's a known thing. But these people shooting at these substations predates the Ukraine war. Well, the government has I think they convicted these guys. There's a couple of them. They're former United States Marines, so former, they're out, and apparently they were Nazis and white supremacists or something. They call them Nazis, but they could have been like Aryan Brotherhood or Aryan, whatever that bullshit is. And it's like, so apparently, yeah, it's not Muslim terrorists. It's white dudes running around the woods saying, "I hate you, black man." It's like, well, it's kind of a shit story, but we talked about it, and so we got to put the bookend on it. So there, that one is. The second one is what I would call phrasing. It comes from a school teacher. These happen all the time. It's the world we live in. Former teacher, quote, this is the headline: former teacher that everyone loved arrested for child sex offenses. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, phrasing, people. It's like, that one get by the editor. So, we'll have that story in there. The final story comes out of a place called Majorca, which is a party island. Kraken knows where it is. It's a party island. If you've been in the Navy, you might have been to Majorca, right, Kraken? So it's a party island that I think belongs to Spain. And so a German man has been arrested because he met a dude on Grindr, which I had to confirm is, I guess, a gay dating site. And the dude he met ended up the next day with an apple up his ass. And it's like, I don't know. I was like, well, that's going to definitely make the police blotter. So, we'll have that story up on the website too. Well, this wraps up episode 350 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links and stuff like this, please go to the website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good day.